In this video, we look at the Riptide pump, the March pump, and the Chugger pump in a side-by-side comparison, and that's coming up next. Welcome to Short Circuiter Brewers. Our channel is all about electric brewing. We do live electric brew days, we do instructional how-to videos, and we also do product reviews just like this one. If you're new to the channel and want to learn more about electric brewing, consider hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we release more content. First, a disclaimer. In all of my review videos, I try to be as transparent as possible. I want to let you know that Blichmann sent me this pump prior to release for review. I did not purchase it, I did not pay for it, and they are not paying me for any type of a good review. If you find this review helpful in making your purchase decision, please consider using the links below to the vendors that I have listed that have this pump either in stock or actually available for purchase. Now let's get to the review. First of all, let's take a look at the exterior of the pumps. On the exterior, the pumps look very similar to each other. The Chugger and the March pump have similar designs on the exterior. The Riptide has a different design in that it is fully enclosed and has a heatsink on the outside as well as a fan on the back with some ductwork to move air across those fins on the heatsink. Once we get inside of the pumps, there's some differences that show up. The Chugger pump has a fairly large size impeller. The March has a smaller impeller. And the Riptide has a completely different design of impeller inside. Inside of the impeller housings, you'll find some similarities there as well. The March and the Chugger pump look very similar, as does the Riptide. One thing to note are the thrust washers for all three of these pumps. The March and the Chugger pump use a Teflon washer, whereas the Riptide uses a stainless steel washer. One of the things that I had heard about the March and Chugger pump with the Teflon washers is that some people were experiencing issues running PBW through their pumps and having the Teflon washers disintegrate and disappear. As you can see, my March pump that I use primarily for pumping wort and whirlpooling and that sort of thing, it is actually missing the Teflon washer. The last time that I had my March pump apart, it had the Teflon washer in place. So that is something that you'll have to bear in mind. That's one of the positive features of the Riptide pump. Having a stainless steel washer, it's not affected by PBW. Well, I think that's about enough of the inside. Let's take a look at some real-world measurements and see what we come up with. First thing I wanted to look at was how quiet the pump is. In my experience, when I initially got the pump, in using it, both in just testing on a bench as well as in my brew day, I noticed that it is very, very quiet, and it is much quieter than the other two pumps. So let's take a look at some decibel measurements. And these are not completely scientific because I used an app on my phone, so a decibel meter would probably reveal more accurate measurements, but I wanted to see what the differences were based on that application that was on my phone. So as you can see, based on those measurements, the Riptide pump is definitely, it's approximately 18 to 20 decibels quieter, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. If you think about it, normal conversation between two people is about 60 to 70 decibels. The next test that I ran was to see how quickly each of the pumps would fill up a 1-gallon jug, which to me is kind of a real-world test. What I did was I filled my mash tun all the way to, I think it was 9 or 10 gallons, which was almost even with the neck of the glass growler. Ran a hose up to the top and pointed it straight down inside of the growler. Then what I did was I turned the pumps on, let them run until it was almost to the top, and tried to shut them off at exactly the right time so that the pitchers would be full. As you can see in this side-by-side comparison, the Riptide leads the way with the Chugger close behind and the March pump in last place. The next comparison that I wanted to do was how did they perform while doing a whirlpool. I've been using the March pump for quite a while as my whirlpool pump, and I've had a little bit of varying results with it. What I decided to do for this comparison was take some ping pong balls, throw them in the boil kettle, fill it to 6 gallons, which would be basically my whirlpool of a 5-gallon batch. I'm usually target about 6 gallons. Turn the pumps on, let them run, see what we got. So as you can see from the results, the Riptide again is the leader of the pack. The Chugger pump brings up second place, and the March is in third. Now let's take a look at 11 gallons and see how the pumps move that volume of water. In the side-by-side comparison videos, you can see that the Riptide moves the objects inside of the boil kettle the fastest. The Chugger pump comes in second, and the March is barely moving anything in there, which is what I've experienced in my brew days when I do whirlpools with the March pump. So those are some real-world comparisons of the performance of the pumps, looking at them side by side. Something that I haven't really talked about yet that I want to address now are some of the features that are on the Riptide pump that are not on the March pump or on the Chugger pump. The Riptide has a linear flow valve built in, as well as a purge valve to allow you to remove the air from the impeller housing to prevent cavitation. Now, the March pump and the Chugger pump don't have these features, so in order to do a direct comparison, you would have to add some things to these pumps in order for them to be a direct comparison to the Riptide. First, you'd have to add a valve. Second, you have to add some sort of a way to purge the air out. As of this video, the street price on the March pump and the Chugger pump, the March pump, the best price that I could find was $169 with a stainless steel head. The Chugger pump, the best price that I found on it was $139 with a stainless steel head. So by the time you add valves and a way to purge the air from the system, you're very close to the $199 that the Riptide pump costs. Not to mention the fact that you can take this apart. It has a 3-inch tri-clover clamp that allows you to take the entire pump head apart, clean it, and provide for a more sanitary brew day. Another feature that the Riptide pump has that the Chugger and the March do not are it has a water-resistant switch. Now, I did some research, and in order to incorporate that into your March or Chugger design, you would need to find a switch that would allow for at least 2 amps and switch on and off. Most of those were anywhere from $10 to $15 without a cord, and that was just something that would plug into a wall. So that's something to consider as well in your price or cost comparison between these three pumps. Another feature of the Riptide pump that I really like is the length of the cord. It measures approximately 9 feet long. The March and the Chugger pump cords are approximately 6 feet long. So if you are using the pumps on a brew stand and you have to go to a control panel, it certainly helps to have an extra length of cord. I know when I installed these two pumps on my system, I had to lengthen the cords, add different plugs for them, obviously, because I use twist lock plugs. But with the Riptide pump, I wouldn't have had to do that. So, while I didn't get into a lot of the technical aspects of the pumps, I wanted to show everybody how these pumps performed in a real-world situation, measuring sound, flow rate, as well as a whirlpool. If you want to know more about the pumps, I'll put some links in the description below for specifications on each one of these pumps. If you have any other questions or want to know more about the Riptide pump, leave a comment down below. Ask me some questions. I'll be happy to answer anybody's questions that they may have. As to the final verdict on the pumps, I'm going to leave that up to you, the viewer. But I know in my personal situation, I do have this one from Blichmann, but I will be purchasing another one as soon as possible to replace my March pump and my Chugger pump with two Riptide pumps. I just find that the quietness of the pumps, the ability to clean them thoroughly on a regular basis is a feature that I really like and I want to incorporate in my brewing process. Being able to clean the pump on a regular basis. I brew in the morning a lot of times and the rest of the household is asleep. So having some quieter pumps certainly adds to the ability for me to be able to get up, early and brew. And so I really enjoy the quietness of the pump. I enjoy the valve. It works very well. The only downfall to the valve is that you can't flip it on and off real quickly like you can with a typical ball valve. But one of the things that overcomes that is the switch on the actual pump itself. So if you were to have some sort of catastrophe, you could simply reach down there and flip the switch. It's in the same basic location as if you had a ball valve on there. So I think that it does overcome that issue with that. Some of the other issues that people have brought up is the purge valve. In my experience with it, since I've used it, if you hold it wide open, is it going to spray water or water everywhere? Absolutely will. But you can feather it or, purge the air slightly in a more controlled fashion so that you don't have that issue. If you are concerned about getting burned by wort or whatever, just put a rag around it, and I haven't had any issues with it. I've used it a couple times in my brewing process, and haven't had any issues. I hope you found this review helpful. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Consider purchasing the pump if you're making that decision with our links below. It lets us know that you really appreciate what we do. I really appreciate doing these reviews for you guys, and the more of that type of feedback I get, the more of those reviews I can do. I really enjoy doing this stuff. And, I can't say enough. I appreciate all the support that I've had recently from everyone. So this has been Brian from Short Circuit Brewers. We'll see you on the next review.